chain drug review, and mass market retailers video forum. Brought to you by the Emerson Group.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Wolt, Editor-in-Chief of Retail Media IQ. Welcome to our video forum. Today, we're thrilled to have as our guest Tanvi Patel, Vice President and General Manager of Amazon Pharmacy. Tanvi, good to see you.
Good to see you, Jeff.
Maybe you could start just by talking about the overall goal of helping patients navigate their way through a complex and expensive healthcare system. How much progress have you been able to make toward achieving that objective?
Absolutely. And you just said it. That is the most important thing, is helping patients navigate through this complicated healthcare system, particularly with Amazon Pharmacy. There's just a lot of friction in the pharmacy space in terms of how folks are getting on their medications, how they're receiving them, and how they're remaining adherent. And then just the complexity of understanding what you're going to pay and, what's the prior authorization required? Is there something else on your payer's formulary that you could be taking instead that you could afford? So that has been our mission from the beginning, is just to make healthcare easier to navigate, to receive, and to remain adherent, get cares and stay healthy. And we've made a lot of progress over the years just with, our investments in speed, our investments in transparency, our investments in key and core partnerships across the industry to make that happen.
You mentioned investments in speed. Over the course of the past year, you've built a number of facilities across the country to facilitate same-day delivery of prescriptions. Maybe you could tell us how those facilities are benefiting the patient and what they're doing for Amazon as well.
So we are investing in speed, and now nearly half of the folks in the United States can get same-day delivery with Amazon Pharmacy, and that will continue to grow even beyond today as we invest in those locations. What that allows us to do is take care of patients with their acute needs in addition to their recurring medication needs. It allows patients to get their medications fast and conveniently without having to navigate the friction of standing in line or figuring out when the pharmacy might be open. And then, of course, serving the increasing pharmacy deserts in the country, ensuring that patients even in the most rural zip codes have access to medications. And so that's how we're really able to continue on that journey to get closer and closer to patients, in addition to the fact that our pharmacists are available 24/7 to connect with. So it's clinically forward, it's human powered, and it's convenient.
And what sort of response have you received from Amazon customers in the markets where you've rolled that service out?
It's been phenomenal. We find that both patients, providers, partners really understand why this is helping health outcomes. That's the goal for everyone and alike, and ensuring that patients have access to a pharmacy that's going to deliver to them same day. And we find even more through conversations with providers, that providers like to know that their patients are getting those medications. They're not going to see that patient 6 months later only to find out they weren't able to make it to the pharmacy and never got on the therapy they were supposed to.
And you mentioned pharmacy deserts. How can you make people in those communities know about Amazon Pharmacy and know that you can provide both the medications themselves and the care that you referenced?
There are a couple ways. One, we have partnerships through provider groups like the AANP with nurse practitioners and AAFP, family physicians. So as physicians and nurse practitioners are taking care of their patients, they are becoming more and more aware of services that their patients might need that are preventing them from taking care of themselves otherwise. So if it's not convenient for them, they know that there are other options available to them. Other things that we're doing is integrating at that point of care, or integrating at that patient choice, to say when the patient is checking out with their medications, having that conversation with their provider, saying how do you want your medications delivered to you, or where do you want to pick them up? They understand their choices. And our integrations with companies like Weight Watchers at point of sale, or with Photon and others, to ensure that they know what those options are. That's another way. And then just through the way that we're working through Prime members and the benefits that we're providing with same-day delivery, we're ensuring that patients in all communities know. One other way is just through payer partnerships, right? So we had a relationship with Blue Shield of California that started about a year ago. Emblem this year. We've launched relationships with many other PBMs that are transparent and modern, like a Barca, for example, they then let their members know that Amazon Pharmacy is either preferred or exclusive in our network, and you can get low prices and transparency. You'll know how much you're going to pay, when it'll be delivered, is that medication in stock. All that information helps to bring peace of mind to patients in all zip codes across the country for access.
You mentioned PBMs. The passage of PBM reform in Washington yesterday. How will that affect your business?
I'll just speak more broadly to that. I think everything that's happening in PBM reform is pretty patient-centric in the sense that it's about access, clarity, and convenience. And we are very much in support of anything that's going to allow patients to have agency and choose their pharmacy, have access to knowing how much they should pay, lowest prices. Anything that furthers that mission is good for the patient, and something that we're behind and what we're building towards as well.
You also mentioned pharmacy care, and if you talk to a conventional pharmacist who works in a brick and mortar store, they'll say, well, that's the one thing that e-commerce can't do. They can't provide the same level of care that I do. How would you answer that criticism?
I actually think that it's the opposite. I understand that question. I understand that criticism in the sense that it's hard to get accustomed to something that hasn't been the norm for decades. But that essentially is the problem, that the pharmacy industry hasn't really evolved much in decades. And we have started to become tolerant of some of the friction in that system. So when we invent something new, this is where technology and access is where we need to use these means that we have. So AI is something that we're implementing very much across Amazon Pharmacy. And what that allows us to do is fill prescriptions faster, almost 90% faster. So what that means is that our clinical pharmacists are more available for that human touch. They're available 24/7 to connect with patients proactively, reactively, when the patient needs it for that clinical care, rather than back office movements like counting pills or understanding whether or not a prior auth needs to be fulfilled. We also use AI to ensure that our inventory is in the right places across the country. And what that means for patients is faster access to medications when and where they need them, rather than having those medications travel across the country for 2 days before they reach them. And these are all ways in which our patients are allowed to then get a more humanized, more clinical forward experience with that pharmacist.
You mentioned the importance of technology. Looking forward, to what degree do you foresee in-home diagnostic tools and those sorts of things being able to expand Amazon's reach into healthcare and perhaps even improve service beyond where it is today?
And I don't want to speculate too much on the future, but I think that this is all possible. One of the things that we've done in terms of getting closer to patient is just the launch of our kiosks in Southern California a couple months ago. This is just one more step forward in ensuring that patients get their medications when and where it's convenient to them. And so if there's a future in other ways to ensure that patients are getting the care they need in a convenient manner, we're looking and exploring all those avenues as well.
Tanvi, let me switch gears slightly and ask you about One Medical and the synergies between Amazon Pharmacy and One Medical. Maybe you could talk about those a little bit.
Yeah, so One Medical, being what it is in terms of member-based 24/7 access to providers, the same access to care convenience that I'm speaking about in terms of Amazon Pharmacy. When you have a care continuum, when patients have access to convenient care, when they need it, on their own clock, when they have access then at the end of that visit to know that they can get medications in the way that is most convenient and reliable to them, that patient is going to have a better health outcome through and through. So what we've done with One Medical and what we're doing across the board with other providers as well through dose spot integrations, Weight Watchers integrations, Photon integrations, Foundation Health and others, is creating that transparency of pharmacy at that point of care. So just to break it down, today you go to the provider and the provider says, where would you like me to send your medication? You say some pharmacy, maybe that's down the street. You don't know at that point that you've selected that pharmacy if it's going to be open when you need it to, if that medication is even in stock, or how much it's going to cost. But you go ahead and select it. That can cause a lot of downstream friction for both the provider and the patient and delay care ultimately, because you might get there, it's closed, it might be out of stock, or you might not be able to afford it. The provider then has to get on the call with the pharmacy again and find something else. With our integrations that we've done with One Medical and several others already, is bring all that information up front. So today, when that conversation is happening with a One Medical provider, the provider knows it looks like you've selected Amazon Pharmacy, and I can confirm here that medication's in stock. It's going to cost you X dollars on with your insurance, or there's a cash option, or there's a coupon, all that information. And it looks like they can deliver it to you tonight, tomorrow morning. All of that sounds great. Push go. And now there's no guesswork. Now that provider knows that patient's going to take that medication, and the patient also goes home knowing that they're going to receive that medication without having to now find another way to get that care.
Earlier, you mentioned artificial intelligence, and One Medical recently rolled out an assistant, healthcare assistant, AI-powered. How is Amazon Pharmacy planning to deploy AI?
So many of the ways that I also mentioned already, we have been implementing AI across our processes for many years already. And in addition to making prescriptions faster and more accurate, that frees up a lot of our pharmacists' time for them to be more clinically available for our patients, smarter inventory. One more way is better pricing. Not all PBMs are providing price transparency. And in those cases, you do have to use and implement AI to ensure that we get the best, most accurate price estimate for those patients. We have several PBMs like Blue Shield of California, Prime Therapeutics, Emblem, that are giving us pricing. So patients of the members of those plans get absolute, accurate, in real-time price transparency to know exactly how much they might pay for a prescription before they're even with the physician or when they're with the physician. But for many others that are not providing that price transparency at the pharmacy, we are implementing AI, and we have been for many years, to estimate that price to the closest dollar. So those are many ways that we continue to evolve. And customer support. We use AI, and we're continuing to evolve how we can use AI to ensure that patients and our customer support teams are the most efficient that they can be to take care of patients when they call.
Final question for you. Last year, Amazon reorganized its healthcare business into 6 groups, 6 pillars, I guess you guys refer to it as. How has that affected what goes on at Amazon Pharmacy?
Really allowed us to focus on what's important and that continuum that I was talking about in terms of getting care, getting your meds, and staying healthy. And so our mission remains unchanged in that we want to make healthcare as frictionless as possible. We are really operating around 4 key, we call them the 4 C's, and those 6 pillars were kind of drawn around the 4 C's. The first being, choice. I've talked a lot about, I think patients should have agency in where they get care. We want to make sure that patients are informed up front so that they can make the best choice for themselves. The second one being clarity of cost. And so that is, again, you need to know how much something is going to cost before you make informed choice. So having clarity and transparency of price up front is important both in medical care and pharmacy. The third one being convenience. Again, having 24/7 access to providers and pharmacists, having convenience in terms of where you're going to get that care, when will it be delivered to you, so that you don't have to stand in line for an hour only to know whether or not you can get that medication. And finally, continuity of care. So as we've really reorganized around these pillars of, get care, get meds, stay healthy, it allows us to understand that care continuum and ensure that patient doesn't drop off, that continuum continues in that care. And this is where our third-party integrations are really, really key too. When patients have choice, they can choose to go to Weight Watchers. They can choose to go to a different provider. We want to make sure that they get that continuity of care, regardless of where they choose to start or end that journey.
No, it's great to see you guys continuing to push the envelope, and I appreciate you sharing your insights with us today. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Jeff.